Between the Pages is made possible by Words and Pictures, located at 2610 Center Street Northeast in Calgary. For all your comic book, anime, toys, and more, stop by Words and Pictures. You'll be glad you did. This episode of Between the Pages is brought to you by Red Skull Comics offers the best selection of comics and trade paperbacks in Calgary, with a great selection of manga, games, magic cards, toys, statues, and a whole lot more. Want to be sure your collection is up to date? Then ask the friendly staff about their file services. Need more room for that growing collection? Then ask Red Skull about selling your back issue titles. 18 years and still going strong, Red Skull is the best little comic shop in Western Canada. Visit Red Skull Comics today at 720A Edmonton Trail Northeast in Calgary. Then find them on the web at www.redskull.com and like them on Facebook. Alchemy Apparel, the place to shop for pop culture, with a wide selection of t-shirts, hoodies, backpacks, wallets, belt buckles, bobbleheads, pop figures, and more. T-shirts of the Avengers, they got that. Star Wars bobbleheads, they got that too. Batman belt buckles, hats or wallets, you can find all your favorite TV, movie, video game, and comic book icons on everything in the store. Head down to Alchemy Apparel in Northland Village Mall and Sunridge Mall today. Be sure to follow Alchemy Apparel on Twitter and Facebook. And we are back with another fine episode number 15, right here on Between the Pages, as we come to you every Saturday afternoon at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. My name is Richard Cleveland, and I am your host of this fine show, which comes to you via the world of the World Wide Web, or the internet, or the internets. And with me, as always, you want the best, you got the best. Here he is, my co-host, Mr. Jason Bishop. How are you today, buddy?
I'm good. I like that intro.
Yeah.
I'm all approved by the Comics Code Authority today.
You are.
The last vestiges of the comic book. It's nice to be approved by somebody.
Well, you know, if they really knew you, they wouldn't approve you.
Well, you go with what you got.
That's true. That's very true.
And I'm the only thing they got.
So we got a lot of things going on today, man.
Yes, we do.
We have a winner in our Name the Ape contest.
And we'll name that person a little later on.
We will.
Because we want to leave them like on the cusp of excitement.
That's right.
Yes.
We have a winner. What else? We got some great books we're going to review today from Image, Marvel's Icon line, and DC, as we do each and every week. We got a couple of kind of cool drops coming today, and some big news. And let's jump right into the news first and foremost. And Marvel, they've been teasing a new war coming after Avengers versus X-Men. I'm gonna let you talk about that.
Yeah, all week long they've been tricking out these images of Iron Man's helmet shot up, and Spider-Man with a gun to his head, and Thor's hammer lying on the ground. And there's been a lot of conjecture flying as to what that could be. Was this the Ultron War? Was this the war that's been teased by Dan Slott in various books? No. It's Punisher Warzone. Punisher kills the Marvel Universe for a third time. I suspect this is going to be a Avengers versus X-Men fallout of some sort, and a natural progression from what Greg Rucka has already started.
Right.
And really tightening Frank's involvement with the Marvel Universe, who's always felt outside of it in a way, even the 616 book. And most of the strongest stories have happened in its own continuity over in the Max lines. So
right.
I think this is a good way to bring attention to the great stuff that Rucka's been bringing to the character. And what better way than him going after the Avengers?
Well, yeah, obviously.
But why? Why would he?
Why would he go after the Avengers?
Yeah.
Well, let me put it this way. Frank Castle as a character hates anybody who does wrong.
So what did the Avengers do wrong?
Well, they're vigilantes. So in his mind, although he's a vigilante too, in his mind, they're doing illegal stuff.
Yeah, but he's always left like Daredevil and Spider-Man a little beat up, but he's always left them alive. So, so I think something happens during Avengers versus X-Men that really tips the scale. I'm almost wondering if we're going to see a role reversal after X-Men. We're going to start seeing the Avengers type characters on the outside, on the cusp of and being hated.
That could be.
And maybe the mutant population is going to be the one that's welcomed and becomes the new heroes. Or we might see the Avengers in the shoes of the mutants.
That could very well be, and I think if the Punisher flips the script, so to speak, and the whole Marvel universe goes topsy turvy, I think he's going to have a hard time with some characters more so than others. Thor would come to mind first and foremost, although we see in a teased image that's been out for a while of Thor's hammer laying on the ground.
Yeah.
Thor's a god.
Yeah.
So how does a mere man with guns and bullets and that kind of stuff take out a god?
Yeah, I don't know. You got to catch him while he's Donald Blake.
Yeah, and he hasn't been Donald Blake a lot lately.
No,
you don't see that a lot.
Not a lot. So.
That was kind of an early persona that we saw in the 70s and a little bit in the 80s, but I don't think we've seen much of it in the 90s and up to today.
You could snipe him in the air. I don't know, so a few armor-piercing bullets for Iron Man.
Yeah, well, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
And, Captain America, I mean, he's still a man.
He's still a
regardless of whether he has a super soldier formula or not. He's still a man.
Yeah.
And, is the Punisher becoming Judge Dredd, so to speak, in this upcoming series? Who knows? Looking forward to that. Next on the docket, though, we have got something from the Spider-Man news, which I kind of thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, he's getting a sidekick.
He is, yeah.
He's getting a sidekick named Alpha, and Spider-Man's now in that position where he was, where Alpha is going to be. He was Peter Parker was the student who went to this big science display. Well, now Peter Parker's the up-and-coming scientist, and it's his experiment that causes an accident and creates Alpha.
Right.
But he's going to take the responsibility for doing so Alpha doesn't make the same mistakes Peter did when he first got his powers that led to Uncle Ben's death.
That's true, and
I don't think I'm saying that stuff's all been announced.
Yeah,
so
it's nothing spoilery.
It's nothing too spoilery, and that's still a couple months away. But that is a pretty big storyline, I think, for Amazing Spider-Man.
I think so too.
Your usual crew of Dan Slott. I don't remember who's doing the artwork. Looks like Humberto Ramos by the teaser ad. So
yeah, I think Ramos. I think has got the edge on this, and if he is the one doing the book, then it says here that Frank Cho's going to write and draw the book.
No, that's Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine.
Yeah.
Wolverine. Yeah. Well, there's the other news.
Sorry, I skipped ahead.
You skipped ahead.
I lost my mind.
He lost his train of thought.
Yeah,
skipping ahead, Frank Cho is rumored to be taking over Wolverine as writer and artist.
Yes.
Given
I don't think it's a rumor anymore.
Yeah, given Frank's speed, I think he's. It's probably down the pike a ways yet, because he's not the fastest guy on the planet, but boy, I look forward to seeing it. He actually is a pretty good writer if you've ever read Liberty Meadows and some of his other material that's come out. So as far as Wolverine goes, I think that's a nice fit for him. Not the obvious stuff, everybody's going to want to usually see him on a cheesecake book. So we're going to see something a little gorier, a little bloodier. He had a zombie book a while back that he only got one issue out of it, but it was really good.
Do you know what I like about artist-writer combinations? When a typical artist writes the book, is you either get good storytelling or you get really crappy storytelling. And in Frank Cho's case, you get that good side, almost to excellent.
He's good at both. He knows how to tell a story. I mean, here's a guy who is telling stories in 3 panels.
Yeah.
Because he was doing a syndicated strip.
That's right.
And not an easy task. So, when giving him some room to breathe, his Shayna book was pretty darn good, despite being editorially interfered with, I should say. I mean, it was meant to be a much more graphic book, a Max book initially,
Right.
but they pulled it back for a teenage audience, so you wound up having to redraw a bunch of stuff, but it was still a really good read despite the changes to the book.
Right.
So,
Well, we got, last but not least on our news items, actually there's kind of two stories in one here. We're going to see the Guardians, Ant-Man, and the Avengers. And I'm gonna let you explain a little bit about what's happening with the
and
Guardians.
actually, I didn't even give you the news. Big Hero 6.
Oh, wow.
So okay, well let's start off with Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel's been snapping up domain names like crazy for Guardians of the Galaxy, and it has long been rumored to be on their production slate. And I think we'll get a formal announcement for that in about 2 weeks over in San Diego. I think this one's very solid, good to go story. We know Edgar Wright's been working on Ant-Man for quite some time, and should be in the post-production stage very shortly.
Actually, speaking of that, Edgar Wright released to the studio a short film, an Ant-Man short film.
Oh, have you seen it?
I haven't seen it. It's not out yet, but there was some news this week about that, and I assume it's going to hit the interwebs, any day now. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Edgar Wright's take on Ant-Man.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that one.
Yeah, he did a short treatment.
Yeah, some rumors are starting to pop for Avengers 2.
Yes.
But just this week was the animation side of things over at Disney has at least approved development, not greenlit the film yet, but approved development of Big Hero 6, which is a kind of a very unknown property at Marvel, really. It's kind of spins out of the mutant books, and it's a Japanese super team. It's got big robots and Silver Samurais on there, as well as... what? Sunfire.
Sunfire.
Yeah, Sunfire.
Yeah.
Which begs the question, it's going to actually wind up being something probably quite different when they get development to it, because Fox has rights to some of those characters.
That's right.
Because they're X-Men characters.
Right.
So not sure about Silver Samurai, where he falls, because he's been all over the place, but certainly Sunfire probably will not be in that property.
Right.
But it's a fun one to develop and not an obvious one. I would have thought animation-wise it probably would have gone after Power Pack first, but
Power Pack's more of a kid-friendly show.
Yeah, so it's neat to see them developing these really lesser-known stuff and trying to get some success out of them. It worked for Blade. It certainly has worked for Iron Man. So look for more crazy stuff coming from Marvel Studios.
You bet.
Yeah.
So there was also, on the 28th of this week, released a 1-minute trailer for the Blu-ray release of The Avengers, which is coming on the 25th of September. Now, due to copyright issues, we can't run that trailer for you.
Yet.
We are working on some of those hiccups. So we want to keep YouTube happy with us, because they kind of slap us whenever we run a trailer. So
every single time.
Yeah. So we'll show you here. You can see it there on your screen. Check it out. It's worth a look. And that pretty much concludes the news for this week.
Yeah, but 2 weeks, we're going to have a ton of, 3 weeks.
Weeks.
About 3 weeks, we're going to have a ton of stuff out of San Diego to talk about, a whole show's worth of stuff. So that's when all the big stories are going to come out. So there'll be a whole news show around that.
You bet.
So.
Hi, this is Fiona Staples, and you're watching Between the Pages.
And we have some people to thank this week, and first and foremost, you've got the first person to thank.
That's right. We'd like to thank Gorilla Printing for this portion of the show. Gorilla Printing is was out of Winnipeg?
Gorilla Printing is out of Toronto. Yes.
Gorilla Printing is out of Toronto. They provide us with all of our banners and handbills and posters, and they can service you the same needs for you.
All across Canada.
All across Canada, they can do all sorts of stuff, from large banners, posters, postcards, you name it, to small business cards. So you name it, they've got it. They can handle all your printing needs, and you can look for Gorilla Printing at gorillaprinting.com.
.ca.
.ca, sorry.
GorillaPrinting.ca. Yeah, check them out. We also want to thank the fine folks down at Red Skull Comics, who currently are running a, I guess, kind of a special. They're doing a special on the 9 covers of The Walking Dead number 100. It's a pre-order. You can pre-buy them for $45, and you'll receive a poster when they all come in to the store on July 11th. Now, Red Skull Comics is located at 720A Edmonton Trail Northeast here in Calgary, Alberta, and you can find them on the web at redskull.com, REDDSKULL.com. Yeah, we can't use that without getting sued. Now, let's get into our spotlight of the day. Let's talk rock.
Are you ready to rock?
I am so ready to rock. We are talking about, of course, some great stuff that's happening in the world of comics, and most notably, first and foremost, is somebody who's been around in comics since, I guess the 80s is when Marvel first did a comic book on them, and that would be the band. You know them, you love them. They are Kiss. Yes.
They made their first appearance in Howard the Duck, of all places.
Yes, they did. Marvel Comics, Howard the Duck.
I had a customer in recently, and he's like, I got the first appearance of Kiss in that big magazine. I'm like, that's not the first appearance. That's the second appearance.
That's second
I had a
appearance.
big argument, and then, of course, I had to prove him wrong. But
Well,
Kiss has been around for a very long time and has always been interested in different medias. They're certainly not shy about it.
No.
And
I think
Kiss has been at Marvel. They've been at
IDW.
Image Comics, Dark Horse Comics,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
and Platinum Studios, and most recently IDW.
Yeah. So if you're a Kiss fan, here's the weird thing about that is this is a band you would never think would be like huge comic fans, but Gene Simmons has stated many times that he's a huge comic book fan.
That's right. He's even written some.
Yeah, he's even written some. It goes all the way back to the early days of Superman, and talking about I think on a recent episode he was talking about his life growing up and how he looked to comic books for inspiration and guidance as a young man because his father wasn't in his life. Which I kind of parallel that in a lot of ways because my father passed away when I was very young, and I read a lot of comic books as a kid, and I always looked up to the heroes that were in them. And Kiss, when my brother introduced me to Kiss on the Dress to Kill album, my eldest brother Robert, he had the album, he played it, and man, I thought this was like gold. I was instantly hooked on the band Kiss, and I was a member of the Kiss Army when I was a teenager and all that other kind of stuff. And then when I saw them appear in comics for the first time, I went, wow, this rocks. And then I saw Kiss in Phantom of the Park.
And then you got over it.
Yeah, I got over it. But I still like the band. To this day, even with all the changes that they made, even through the 80s when they decided to become a hair metal band or a hair love band or whatever they were through the 80s when they dropped the makeup.
Yeah.
I kind of thought, okay, they'll still survive.
It's still the same music, right? So
Heaven's on Fire, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Being rock and roll music, me, I'm a classic rocker, and this is something I know a lot about. Now, who else have we seen in
Well, before we get there, Gene Simmons, he talks more about his love for Superman on the Superman DVD. It was like a documentary on Superman, and in the anniversary, right around the time Superman Returns came out. So it was like the history of Superman. He talks about the parallels between, coming to a new country. He was born in Israel, and he came to America, and he feels like Superman's like the ultimate immigrant, and it talks a lot about that. It was a very good documentary, so you should probably check that out. His son Nick Simmons has also been writing some comics as well.
Yes.
For various publishers, IDW and Radical Studios. So check that stuff out. But man, there's a ton of Kiss product out there. So and just in comics alone. And
there's lots of it.
Yeah. No shortage of that stuff.
No.
I actually quite like the Image books. I read that for a while.
I'm kind of a fan of them too.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a fan of the Image books. I like the way things have progressed for them. I do see more of. Here's another great image. I just got to show this image
Yeah, go for it.
because this is actually from the Dress to Kill album.
Yeah,
cover.
and you can see this is the first issue for the new
IDW.
IDW book, and they are essentially telling arcs based on the
Yeah.
song titles. So,
Yeah.
very cool idea. Tori Amos had a whole book called Comic Book Tattoo that each had a bunch of short stories by
Right.
various artists. It's a massive tome of a thing, and it's not even very expensive. It's like for like this. It's
Right.
a massive book, which is why I didn't bring it, because it break
It's
my
huge.
back. And it's like $30 for
Wow.
a book like this thick. It's huge, and it's all about her various songs and things like
Right.
that. It's stories, adaptions of her music.
Oh, wow.
And it's beautiful books, so I highly recommend it. And they've got guys like Neil Gaiman in there.
Sure.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful book. So check that one out.
Now, one that you were particularly interested in before we get to
yeah.
any more of the pile. We're both Punisher fans,
Yes, we are.
so
And this is a cover for somebody I would love to see Punisher shoot.
So in this book, it looks like Eminem is the Punisher's sidekick, and Eminem gets top billing in this book.
Yes.
Why? I don't know.
I'm not sure. But this was a small failed attempt at Marvel to do a bunch of music books, and most people don't even know this exists. I've yet to come across these even in my shop, and it was just one of those things that you see it and you're like, huh.
Huh.
And speaking of, wasn't there a Harvey book?
There. Let me. Yeah,
You got to keep that one up.
I'm gonna bring that one up.
There's
Speaking of,
another
I don't know why we're bringing this up. But,
because it's funny. Okay.
yeah.
Richie Rich and New Kids on the Block.
They also did a Wendy title.
That's right.
Wendy, the
New Kids made it around the Harvey titles back
boy did they ever.
in the 80s.
There's another
late
image.
80s, and I'm like, it was just too weird not to bring up and talk about.
Now, do you think the Wahlberg kid really regrets this?
He probably has completely
I mean-
forgotten about it.
I
so.
mean, he's done a lot of things in his career that I don't think he's really proud of.
I have some backdoor connections. I'm going to make sure the show's forwarded to him so he sees that.
Great, yeah.
Yeah. And we're seeing some band members back to Kiss for a second. Kiss recently met the Archie gang
Yes, he did.
over the
let me
Archie
see-
books.
there we
This
go.
was just a few months ago before
Gotta
the
bring that image
IDW launched. So there's some weird crossovers, I got to admit. but
This is taking a minute to load, so there we
that's
go.
all right. So there you go. There's a cover to the Archie Kiss book.
Now, you know what I dig about this cover? Even though our good friend Dan Parent did it, who we interviewed at the Calgary Expo.
And hopefully I'll have a much longer extended interview, because I'd love to talk to him about all the crazy stuff that
Oh,
Archie's
yeah.
been doing recently.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to get him on
We're going to try and get him on
show.
a future show. This looks like the cover of one of Kiss's albums.
It totally does. It's
classic Kiss
got the
album.
heads in the corner.
Yeah.
You can just see that in your head. If you're any kind of Kiss fan, you probably could name the album. I'm not one of those
I
people.
could, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to leave that up to our viewers to try and name that.
There you go.
Now, you've got a whole bunch more in front of you. I want to talk about Rob Zombie for a
Okay.
second.
Well, he's been heavily involved in comics. He very much likes the genre. He likes movies, and
Right.
He's been developing his own properties. Now, this one that I brought with me is also available as a DVD.
There's
based
several
on this property.
DVDs out on this, isn't there?
No, just the one. El Super Beasto, The Haunted Worlds of El Super Beasto. It was an animated, kind of Ralph Bakshi-esque type of film. And this is by various artists, and it's certainly not kid-friendly.
No.
So I'm not going to open up to that one, because there's a whole bunch of screwing around there. But it's a pretty violent book, as well as a lot of TNA. And if you're a Rob Zombie fan, you probably know what I'm talking about. This is a fun book, and some of his other characters show
Sure.
up in here as well. Versions of the Doctor from I can't remember his name right now. I'm blanking, but the dock at the end.
Captain Spaulding.
Captain Spaulding's in here.
In there as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of cool stuff. He's also done some work with Steve Niles. They did a book together called The Nail.
Right.
And he's done other works from some of his other properties, the Devil's Rejects and things like that. So there was an anthology book a few years ago that had El Super Beasto and the Devil's Rejects guys and some news stories as well. And he kind of acted as the crypt keeper in those stories. So
very cool.
Yeah, it was a pretty good anthology book at the time. But I think he wound up shifting it over to another company. So
okay, now that we've talked about Rob Zombie, which is one of your favorites, and
yes,
I know that it is.
I'm very much a Rob.
I have
Zombie
to go to the. I have to go to the shelf here for a second.
Okay,
hang on. You talk amongst yourselves.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna bring up my notes here for a second. There's some stuff I didn't bring, sadly. Because we were sold out. But Fallout Boy's got a comic book from Image called The Fallout Toy Works. It's kind of a sci-fi, cute robot property, that sexy robot kind of thing.
Right.
Verada Comics was a whole line of definitely adult-orientated horror books by Glenn Danzig.
Oh, wow.
Who I actually met at one point when we had a shop at the University of Calgary. And his entourage comes in, and then he comes into this shop. And he's all put out because I don't have any of his books on the shelf. And he's like, why don't you have any of my books? And I'm like, well, I'd carry your books if Diamond would ship them across the border. They all had adult ratings, so I couldn't get them. As simple as that. I couldn't get them, which was sad. And Image also had another book out. It wasn't, it was a Rockstar-specific story, but not so much Rockstars involved in the story.
Right.
It was called 27.
Okay.
And what it was about...
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's about these rock and roll guys who died at the age of 27.
Oh, very cool.
So, very interesting idea. I need to get my hands on that one because it's certainly an interesting story. We all know about, Joplin and Hendrix.
Sure.
And the list goes on and on. So
wow.
It was a really interesting idea about rock stars and their life, and this is kind of done in comic form and around this mysterious death at the age of 27.
Now, do you guys have that in the shop, or can you get it?
I don't right now, but you can certainly get the collections. So
good, because if you can get it, order me one.
Okay,
you know me being a big, classic rock fan. I'd love to read that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those last minute thoughts when we were putting the show together, and I'm like, oh, I got to put that in my notepads, and I remember to mention that one because I just stumbled across it and I'm like, oh God, I wish I had some issues to bring in.
Oh wow.
So very very neat idea. Very very cool book. Over a fairly hard, tragic subject, mind you, but fascinating nonetheless. Of this, it's almost like this curse number of
right.
27. So I'm not sure if they fictionalized that in some way or if they've just done autobiographies.
Well, it'll be interesting to read. Now,
yeah, for sure.
I had to ask you to look this one up for me because I didn't know if you guys had it in the store. But I'm a huge, and I've said this before already in the show, that I'm a huge, classic rock fan, and I'm also a huge Alice Cooper fan.
Yes, this is. He asked me for this one. I knew exactly what book it was, and we dug it up. This was Alice Cooper's Marvel debut. And later on, he had another book coming out from Marvel.
Yeah.
You can bring up that cover, but I'll show this Dark Horse version.
There you go.
And this was called The Last Temptation. And the original covers were... this was actually written by Neil Gaiman.
Oh, wow.
And with beautiful art by Michael Zulli. This is some of the black and white material, but the original epic printing was in full
Look
color.
at the artwork in that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we have a Neil Gaiman story for Alice Cooper. And I got to tell you, when I read this, it's a creepy little book. It actually got under my skin in a way. It's not just, hey, this is Alice Cooper. He's like this weird entity.
You're gonna have to leave that one behind so I can read it.
Oh yeah, I'll leave it for you for a few days, and you can check that one out.
So Alice Cooper's been in. We've got Kiss in there. We've got who else do we got?
Well, let's see. We got Gerald Way has been
oh yeah, there we go.
Doing a series of books called The Umbrella Academy. There's 2 trade paperbacks out right now. This is the first one.
I'm going to bring up the other one.
And he's been doing this with Gabriel Ba. And I got to tell you, this is a really neat superhero book.
Is it?
You know, when a musician comes up with a book, it's like, oh, this feels like kind of forced or whatever, and
right.
like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work. And then but you always give it a shot. Now it's like I see a musician, I'm like, oh man, I gotta take a look at that because maybe it's another Gerald Way. I mean, My Chemical Romance frontman, and he's a damn good writer too.
You know, that's the thing about musicians, though. If they're writing music, they do have a tendency to be able to write a good story.
Yeah, this has kind of got that weird organization you would see like a superhero organization, right. And these kids with powers growing up under the guidance of this organization, and they all turn into as adults, they all wind up turning into something very unique and twisted. And nice. it's really actually quite a difficult book to review because it's just strangeness at its best.
That's cool.
It's very cool stuff. I highly recommend Umbrella Academy. This one's called The Apocalypse Suite by Gerald Way. There is a second volume out, and they're available now and currently in print by Dark Horse.
Okay, cool. And one of your other favorites there, what else you got there?
Well, that was my favorite. I haven't read this one.
Take that one last then.
Yeah, okay. This one is by Claudio. Oh, no, this is a character by called Claudio. This is by Coheed and Cambrian frontman Claudio Sanchez and co-written by Peter David.
Oh, wow.
And it's called The Amory Wars.
The Amory Wars,
and Sanchez has been involved in a few other books. Some new stuff coming out, but there's a few volumes to Amory Wars.
Right.
It's a sci-fi kind of story, and I like that these guys coming in and they're just not trying to make their band characters. Pretty good stuff from what I've understand. I'm actually quite a Peter David fan. Until I brought this book in, I had no idea he had anything to do with it. So
well,
that just makes me want to read it
is very
more.
Solid, I find.
I like most of the stuff he does.
He's got really solid writing.
I read 12 years worth of Hulk. So
now let's get into Wild Eye for a second. Wild Eye was a publishing company that put out a whole series of unauthorized rock and roll comics, story of rock and roll comics.
Yeah, which Blue Water snapped up recently.
Yeah, and this is just one of those. They say all true, all shocking. We've got Ted Lauren there. We have Alice Cooper, Mojo Nixon. Who else we got there? We've got the Sex Pistols, Guns N' Roses, and Metallica. Metallica, my understanding, they were hugely upset when there was a comic based on them without their authorization.
Well, they were ones that killed Napster back in the day before they became more legit and bought out.
That's true.
But Napster originally, they're the ones that kind of shut down Napster. I had a friend who was downloading off Napster when it wasn't so illegal to do so, and he got a cease and desist letter from Metallica.
Nice. I think they did this one too.
So they really they've got a tight purse strings, I guess. Because they don't want any possible extensions on their pool to go to somebody else. So
they also did a book for REM.
They literally did everybody that you can think of. There are tons and tons of rock and roll comics. Kiss was another one. Def Leppards.
There's huge.
I remember these books when they came out, and they did everybody you could think of, and nobody was particularly happy about it. But
no, that's true.
They fielded a lot of lawsuits over the years, which is probably why they're not around anymore. And I'm wondering if Blue Water's having the same problem because they're doing a lot of unauthorized biographies on politicians, movie stars, rock stars. When Stan Lee was here recently, I was standing in line for Stan Lee. And Stan Lee will sign everything and anything you've got except the unauthorized biography from Blue Water. Which I thought was hilarious.
Can you see why he wouldn't do that, though?
Yeah, I totally understand the reasonings for it. I mean, he didn't authorize it. That's
right.
Something against the wishes, and it might not be accurate. I mean, I never read it. I don't want to read an unauthorized biography. You know,
Sure.
I wanted to from the word of mouth, right? So
Now, from Mike Allred, pardon me, we bring Red Rocket.
now this one's there's a ton of music in here. As far as the characters, I'm not even going to go through it all, but I mean, there's Elvis, Beatles, David Bowie.
Okay, don't spoil anything because I got an image I want to show.
The Dandy Warhols. There's this really great image. It's in the book. Richard's bringing that up right now.
There we go.
Wow, this is like a Where's Waldo. You can just go through it and you're like, okay, that's that guy, and
Well, this cover is reminiscent of the Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band cover put out by the Beatles. And I'm going to dare our viewers, there you go, I'm going to dare our viewers to try and name as many people on this image as they possibly can. And I'm going to leave it up for a couple seconds while we talk a little bit about the book. Now, I have not read this book. I've not read any of the stuff Red Rocket 7 has put out. So maybe you can enlighten me a little bit on what the content is and how the story.
I actually haven't read it either, but it is kind of a rock and roll sci-fi story. And
Okay.
It was a miniseries put out by Dark Horse.
Right.
Originally, it was a much larger format than the trade I'm holding in my hand. Thankfully, this one's a little more manageable than the one that initially came out.
Right.
I'd say the one that came out, it was about twice the size of this initially. And they were the big square-bound comics as well. I got to tell you, I mean, I'm a fan of Mike Allred. I've read a lot of Madman over the years. He is definitely one of the more interesting artists out there. His style's very throwback to the 60s.
Right.
But very detailed. He's just he has a different and unique voice in the industry, and I've had the pleasure of meeting him a few times, and he is
Cool.
one of the nicest dudes on the planet. So, I mean, if you want to have a lot of fun and you love music, this is probably a must for your shelf.
Okay.
But I got to tell you, flipping through this, I'm like, God, this has been on my to-read list for a decade now, since the book came out, and I
Right.
still haven't got around to reading it. So, I got to, and well, here's another good one here.
Living in his nowhere land.
Yeah.
Now that
it
is,
looks like a pillow fight with the Beatles, but
yeah. Well, that line is directly from a Beatles song.
there you go. And it's just great, wild, crazy stuff. There's aliens and rock stars, and it's just all over the place. This just looks like a wild, wild story. So check it out. Red Rocket 7 from Dark Horse Comics, and written and drawn by Mike Allred, and an introduction written by Robert Rodriguez, the
very
eminent
nice.
filmmaker, and the outro by Umbrella Academy's Gerald Way.
Very cool.
So, and My Chemical Romance. There's another one out for Dark Horse right now by another musician called Orchids.
Orchid.
If you could line up the image. I keep forgetting who the heck's doing this one.
Wouldn't you know it? I just closed the image.
You just closed it.
That's okay. I can open it up.
All
again.
right. And it's been I have yet to read this one. It's out around issue 7 or 8 right now.
Okay.
So it's an ongoing book, and it's been getting some pretty good
There we go.
feedback. So I'm kind of hoping it's another strong story like Gerald's been doing over on Umbrella Academy. Can you see who's writing that book?
Yeah, it's actually Tom Morello.
There you go, Tom Morello.
Yeah.
You guys will definitely
Dan
know that
Jackson's
name.
on this book, and so is Scott Hepburn.
Yeah, so Tom Morello, who knew, but
Yeah.
a lot of these rock guys are comic book fans. When we had the shop at the university, there were a lot of gigs at the university.
Right.
And if and when they had time, they would drop in and talk to me. And a lot of times I didn't recognize them because they're all dressed down and
Sure.
they're relaxed. And, oh, yeah, I'm with the band. And I'm like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm the lead singer. Oh, I would feel all embarrassed, but they were very nice and give me comps and things like
Sure.
that, and it was very cool.
Guess I need to switch that. Yeah.
You put some video up.
There we go.
So I got to meet Glenn Danzig. I said,
nice.
oh God, the coolest guy was Lemmy from Motorhead. I mean, he's a character unto himself. He's rough and gruff and man, the guy lives rock and roll.
Oh yeah.
And I got to tell you, he was a really interesting guy to come in the shop. Who else did I have? I had the Misfits.
Right.
In Gwar guys loved the shop. They usually did a show at the university every single year. So
wow.
these giant men with a ton of tattoos were coming in. I always knew Gwar was in town. So
It's funny. My career in radio and live broadcasting and that kind of stuff. I mean, I had the distinct pleasure of working with a lot of the bands that we've talked about, or at least some of the bands that we've talked about. And, it's been an interesting career for me in terms of that. But the other side of the coin here is comic books to short-lived rock stars. And one of those was from Archie Comics. Actually, two of them were from Archie Comics. First and foremost, we've got Josie and the Pussycats.
Oh, that's right. And we had the Archies was a band based on the characters, and Josie and the Pussycats also had their own music.
You bet.
Comic fictional characters with their own music.
Yeah, which was amazing.
And hit songs.
Very hit songs.
Yeah, it's really catchy hit songs from the 60s. It was, an incredible time where characters leapt off the page.
Yeah. I agree.
And really, probably something that'll never happen again.
Well, I don't know. I think we're coming into an era now that we're going to start seeing that again, where they may decide to bring a group of characters together and then make a rock band out of it. Most notably, Dazzler.
That's true. Boy, that'd be
Comics.
Interesting. She was a pop star in the comic books, and I would love to see somebody release a single.
She actually, I think Marvel did this back in the 80s. They actually released, I think it was an EP, if I'm not mistaken, of music that was supposed to be done by Dazzler, the character.
Oh, really?
And I think they had some unknown pop star do the singing, and it really didn't go anywhere, didn't hit any charts.
I've seen some false attempts at trying to tie comics into musicians, but unfortunately they never had the hits behind it, so nobody ever heard of them. I remember, I think Alley Cat was one of the ones that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Now, if you have any interest in rock stars and comic books, and you've got a question or something that you want us to explore later on or send you an answer to, hit us up on Facebook, and there should be a U in production. Sorry about that. My bad spelling.
You should fix that.
Hit us up on Facebook or send us a tweet on Twitter. You can go there. You can see down at the bottom, or you can send us an email at betweenthepages@nakedapepod.com, and you'll find that down in the bottom purple area of the lower third that you see on your screen.
I forgot to mention Dee Snider.
Oh, yeah, Dee Snider.
He's big into comics, and his son Jesse Blaze has been doing a bunch of comics as well. Mostly, he's done a bunch of kids' comics, and I think he did some Muppet stuff. So, the family is keeping the comics out there. And
well, Dee's one of those larger-than-life characters.
Yeah,
and, much like Kiss and
Jesse's
Alice Cooper.
carrying it on really well. He's all over my PS3 right now, doing stuff on there.
Very cool. All right, so we're going to be moving into our review here in just a second. We got somebody to tell us a little bit about something.
Oh.
Hey, folks, I'm Jim Cummings. Stay tuned because you're watching Between the Pages. I'm Jim Cummings. Stay tuned because you're watching Between the Pages. You'll feel the difference.
There's Mr. Jim Cummings. What a great guy.
I feel the difference.
I feel the difference. Do you feel the difference? I feel the
difference.
So let's get into our first of all, we should say who this section of the show is brought to us by.
This is the review portion,
yes,
and the review portion is always brought to you by Words and Pictures, located right here in Calgary at 2610 Center Street Northeast. New issues every Wednesday. They have file services, largest selection of back issues in the city, shirts, hats, toys. All sorts of tchotchkes. Anything you need, Words and Pictures has got it. Check them out in Calgary. Their phone number is 403-282-8870. Like them on Facebook because they're pals of ours.
You bet.
So what are we reviewing first?
We are going to start off with Fatale today, and interesting book brought to us by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. This is number 6 that we're reviewing today, Image Comics.
And I chose this one because it starts a new arc. The trade paperback for the first 5 issues also came out the same day as issue number 6.
Oh, wow.
So you can get caught right up on Fatale. And this is an interesting book because he does his crime noir thing with a very horror slant to it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Sean Phillips' artwork simply because he doesn't do pencils. He goes straight to those inks.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's very fascinating to see that because it's such a scary way to work.
That it is. Going straight to inks instead of pencils, very, very scary in my opinion. And this book, though, it comes off well. It's a little dark.
It's definitely dark, and I found it a tougher read than like his previous the previous pairings from these guys, like Criminal and Incognito and Sleeper. I mean, all of them are fantastic. But I didn't just read number 6. I read 1 through 6.
Yeah, you're
to
saying
get
that.
ready for this review because I don't like jumping in the middle of a storyline, and it's been on my to read. And since I picked it for review, I'm just like, let's get caught up on this. I gotta say, it was a bit of a difficult read for me this time out. Definitely a heavier noir aspect to it than
huge.
even some of the other Brubaker crime books we've seen in the past. And the first arc happens in the 50s. This one's in the 65 era.
65 era,
Yeah.
One thing I found about this book, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
no worries.
I found it out. I found this to be a lot more, how can I say, narrated. It's full of narration.
It's something we haven't seen in comics in a while.
In a long time.
I mean, this is the
very little dialogue, but lots of narration.
Yeah, this is our lead character looking back on events,
right?
Which is set up in the earlier stuff, and they don't do as good of a job in number 6 to catch you up on that. Which is why I highly recommend the trade paperback before you pick up number 6.
Well, in chapter 1, we jump to 1978, and then it's kind of a reflection back throughout the book. And that's where that narration really comes in. Anything that's done in the 70s style of this book seems to be a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
Anything that is referenced to the past is all done in narration, and it's kind of a cool book. I mean,
I can't really give you much of a sense of the story because it's so multi-layered, and honestly, you're probably going to have to. This one is so complex that I mean, as enjoyable it is as one go. You're probably going to need to reread them over again as subsequent stuff. Because you're going to keep finding new things, and you're going to go, oh, that's a reference back to here. I'm going to have to check that out again. And it's a book that's going to wind up giving you some exercise, I think.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Next, we are going to be talking about Marvel's Icon line, and this one is Hit Girl, brought to us by Mark Miller and John Romita Jr. This is issue number 1. The title of the book is The Little Bitch is Back.
and this follows the events of Kick-Ass 1 and 2, obviously.
Yeah, this kind of picks up shortly after the movie, I think, ends, or even in the first incarnation of the book.
Yeah.
We start off with the murder of a street vigilante who's probably not much of a vigilante, very much like Kick-Ass in a lot of ways, doesn't have a lot of weaponry, doesn't really know what the hell he's doing. And there you can see an image on your screen now. I don't want to really spoil much.
And
but
just get some very nice artwork again from John Romita Jr., who's co-creator on this book with Mark Miller.
Huge amount.
Yeah, and I got to say, this is some of his nicest work. I like this a lot better than his Avengers vs. X-Men work. And despite having been a little soured on Mark Miller lately, it seems he's been repeating himself.
Right.
I actually quite enjoyed the first issue.
It's
just fun kind of stuff.
Admittedly, I did not read Kick-Ass when it was a book.
I read the first volume. I didn't read the second one, so I feel like I was skipping ahead a little bit on this one.
But I did like the movie.
I very much like
as much as the movie was panned in theaters, got some not so great reviews.
You know, and it did really good on the back end.
It
did
did.
stellar on DVD. So, and I feel like some of these lesser known characters wind up getting a second chance on DVD.
Very true.
When these films get made. So,
what I liked about this book was the way that the story jumped around a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we see present day with the little girl who plays Kick-Ass,
and I think that's
or plays Hit
Crimson
Girl.
Mist at the
It's
the
Crimson
end.
Mist. Yeah.
Yeah.
We also see that
So we're seeing
Mindy is her name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we're picking up on a lot of these characters we saw in the first series, and I'm not sure if the second series is necessarily reading to enjoy Hit Girl.
I don't think
I
it
certainly
is.
didn't find it necessary because I hadn't read it, and I was able to jump right in, and it didn't feel like I missed anything at all. So
It feels to me like if you saw the movie, you could jump right into this book.
yeah, which is interesting. Despite having 2 trade paperbacks out right now, you could literally, if you watch the movie, you could literally jump into Hit Girl right now.
The way that they do the flashback scenes of when she's being trained by her dad, and as we know, her father is killed in the series of the books and in the movie.
Yeah.
She goes to live with Marcus, who was the cop friend or old partner of her father.
Yeah. And it's an interesting personal story. She's so connected to the training and the superhero stuff. She doesn't know how to be a real person.
No, that's right. And that's what this story kind of explores is her introduction into school and into the public school system. Because I hadn't read the books. I'm assuming that she was homeschooled for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, she goes in and talks a little bit about that, and she's at Big Daddy's grave in one of the scenes in the book, and I think that, and then of course she picks on Kick-Ass for his attire, wearing a scarf and an overcoat. What kind of superhero wears a scarf and an overcoat?
Yeah, there's definitely some humor in here, and it's the Mark Millar kind of darker humor that we're used to seeing. So
the Crimson dude, not the dude that we saw in the previous book. He's a little more creepy in this one.
Yeah, and he hasn't got all of his marbles together. I certainly like his minions.
Yeah.
They're hilarious.
Yeah, Hood 1 and Hood 2.
They really feel throwbacky to the 60s
Batman kind of
story of like, can they be dehydrated? Do you need to be at water? That movie?
Who
That was
knows?
great. Our final book today.
Our final book comes to us from DC Comics. And as we've been continuing this, it is Before Watchmen. This is #1, Nite Owl, brought to us by Michael Straczynski, Adam Kubert, and Joe Kubert. Now, Adam does the artwork, Joe does the inks.
It gives a nice, solid, classic look to it when you start flipping through it. And actually, on a casual flip, it really just kind of looks like they're regurgitating story from Watchmen. But as you read it, not so much. It actually, on the cursory glance, I really got the wrong impression on this book.
When I flipped through, I kind of had I did. You know me. I flip through books first and foremost before I start to read. But this is really a opening to the current.
It's a
Nite
passing,
Owl.
it's a passing of the torch from Hollis Mason and the training of the Nite Owl that we see in Watchmen, and they dance in and out. It almost has a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern feel in ways. We dance into that meeting,
right?
Where their characters are first brought together, and back out again, and riding the shoulder of the new Nite Owl. Definitely, this one tonally feels like the biggest departure from the Watchmen series than the other ones.
I have to agree.
There's actually quite a bit of subtle humor in there. This very much feels like a Straczynski book rather than an Alan Moore book. People trying to do Alan Moore. He's being respectful of the material without trying to carry the same voice.
I agree. We also see in this book, which I was kind of surprised because this is kind of before Watchmen, but we see the formation of the current incarnation of Watchmen in this book near the end of the book. And
it's something that's actually in Watchmen as a flashback, so it's not a big spoiler there. But like I said, they kind of dance in and out of events more so, where the other books seem to be getting out of the way of that material.
Right.
Every now and again they'll reference it, but they're not trying to play in that pool where Straczynski's like, I'm going to dive head first.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to read this book because, like I said, tonally it feels quite different.
Well, there was no music in this book.
All the books have opened with music, which
Yeah.
plays really heavily in all the other Watchmen stuff. But,
That's right.
In this book, there's nary a tune.
But to that credit, though, they do open with a news story that
Yes.
seems to be playing on a radio or
So you
television.
still have that radio interaction.
That's right, and of course we see that the young hero who will become the hero. He's quite enamored with Nite Owl or Harless Mason's character. His room's all decorated and that kind of thing. But
that was one of those obsess much kind of moments.
Yeah, but when we see the transition and the passing of the torch to the character, I think that the book, for all intent and purposes, hit the mark. Straczynski.
It's good.
He's had hit and misses with me in terms of writing.
As me too, and I'm always terrified that he's only going to write half of it.
Yeah.
But
and then he gets lazy in the other half and goes, okay, this is how it ends.
Yeah, but I enjoyed this book, but I didn't think it was great, and so far it's probably my least favorite of the 4 that are out. That's notwithstanding, it's not a bad book at all. It's actually still a very good read. But it was the least impactful to me.
Right.
It had the least emotion to it. The only real feeling I got of it were the slight giggles I got out of some of the subtle jokes he was putting in there. But it's still an entertaining read. It's just I don't think it's quite up to snuff with the other ones.
I kind of think that this book, in terms of the 3 that have already been put out, and this being the 4th, I kind of think that this was meant to be the second one, because if you look through the book, it covers ads. Like there's a Silk Spectre ad, which we reviewed 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then there's also an ad at the back that shows the 4, this being the last one in the series, but it almost feels like this should have come before Silk Spectre. In terms of the way the book is laid out.
Yeah, and I don't think that's really all that important.
No.
But
you would think that they would have put ads in this one that would be for the next grouping of books that would have come out.
Yeah, because we're getting Ozymandias next week,
Right.
so
and then Rorschach after that, right? Rorschach number 6?
Probably.
Okay.
I don't know for sure.
And we're going to keep up on the Before Watchmen. We're going to keep running them each and every week until all the number 1s are out.
Yeah, and then we'll hold on, and then we'll give it a rest, and we'll do a special when it all comes to a close,
Right.
and how everything kind of relates back to Alan Moore's story.
Right.
So we'll get more in depth when the book is finished, but we're going to give you an idea of these books and reviews of what we think and whether it's worth your dollars. And so far, I got to say, the entire line has been worth it. I certainly love the artwork in this book. It really worked for the time period and the feel of it. And
if you're a Q-Bird fan, you're going to love this book.
yeah, I mean, it's a great mix of both styles, and I think it works really well.
I think Andy draws a lot like Joe. And then when you add Joe's inks over Andy's drawing.
Yeah, I think Andy's more dynamic than Joe, so
I think so too.
They mix really well. And I've seen this pairing before back in Batman versus Predator, the first series, and I think all the Q-Birds worked on that one. And I think that book is gorgeous. It's a strange one to bring up, but
right.
Again, you gotta the whole family was working on that one, and it was just a beautiful book.
I still think that this book is thinner than the other 3.
But it's not. I did a page count, folks. He picked this up, and there is a difference in paper stock. So when you pick this up, yes, it feels thinner, but it's not. It's a paper stock difference. Page count, it's right up there with all the other ones that have come out. But they have made a paper change in there, which makes the book physically feel different and thinner. But I did the page count. Everything's good.
Now, speaking of that, we'll just wrap the review up with, they are moving to a different page stock.
I'm not sure which one publisher was looking to do the page stock as the same stock they're using on covers, which will consequently make the book feel thinner. And this may be, this didn't feel like one of them, but there is a difference somewhere. And I'm no expert in paper, but as you get things with a different bleed and things like that, paper stocks change and they fold differently. And you know, if you did that whole paper stock stuff, it would feel like really thin.
Sure.
Despite having large paper counts because they fold better or whatever. I don't know the ins and outs of all that stuff, but I'm kind of hoping they don't, because you kind of want to pick that up and feel like you're getting value. And even though the page count's different, there's that psychological thing. You're like, oh, that doesn't feel like much content. Right. It might make you just put it back on the shelf because of it without even looking at it.
That's right. I saw that in the store on Wednesday, though. Yeah. When I was there talking with you, people were, you know, they pick up the book and I saw them put it back down on the shelf. I think probably because it felt thinner.
Yeah.
Or they didn't want
just like that
story.
It was still sellouts, so.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so I mean, Watchmen has still been a great success, and it was been fascinating to watch it. Initially, people were so resistant to it. They weren't doing their pre-orders, so I knew it was going to be a slow burn book.
Right.
It really didn't get people signing up until after the first book had out. In fact, until the second book, Silk Spectre, had already come out, and then people really started signing up for it and going whole hog and signing up for the whole kit and caboodle. But it's, you know, despite people's feelings about Alan Moore not being involved in the creator rights things, this is DC's to do with what they want,
right.
And they're being very, very respectful to it.
I think they are.
When Paul Levitz was running the company, he could have had one out. He wouldn't let that sequel happen
out
of respect for Alan Moore. But let's face it, he's not coming back. DC's not going to let it go. A bad deal was signed. I'm not saying poor Alan Moore, but you know, this is back in the day when the deal basically was they get the rights back when the trade goes out of print. Nothing stayed in print back then, so they thought, hey, no problem. But something had to be the first. And, you know, I hate to see these creators getting screwed around, but the book was built around the Charlton properties with DC owned, and the only reason they weren't the Charlton characters in the first place is because they wound up doing Crisis and integrating them there, so they wound up changing elsewhere. Arguments can be made on both sides. I'm certainly not going to pick sides, but at the same time, I'm not going to let my feelings about some creators' gripes keep me away from reading a good story.
Well, we'll dispense with the politics of it.
That's right.
Crimson Corsair in the back. I avoided it completely this time.
I read it. I still don't know what the hell's going on.
I'm going to wait till all the number ones are out, and then I'm going to see if there's a consistent flow to the story. But
I think that one's going to have a review all by itself, because in two-page chunks,
it's not coming together.
It's not coming together. So it's definitely one I'm going to have to reread down the road, but and see how that relates. And so far, I'm not getting the whole comic within the worlds thing.
Right.
Maybe that plays at the end.
Who knows?
Maybe it's just a pirate story they're tacking in. I honestly don't know what's going on there. So. We'll have to wait to see how that plays out over the course of the series. So
there you have our 3 books for this week. Go out, pick them up. I think we recommend all 3 books. I think
they're all very strong books. I don't think this Watchmen is as the strongest of the 4, but a still very entertaining read. It's still worth your $3.99.
Which was your pick this week?
Out of the 3, my favorite. Oh, that was a toughie because, you know, Fatale didn't hit as well as I was hoping for me. I think I'm still going to go with Watchmen on this one.
Okay.
Because I'm still sick of Miller doing the same thing over and over again.
For me this week, it's going to be Hit Girl. For this week, it's going to be Hit Girl. I really enjoyed that book more than any of the other 2. As much as I did enjoy Before Watchmen as a story and how it all was a coming of age, and more so than Silk Spectre was for me, and a passing of the torch story, I still felt that Hit Girl was a more solid book to me. So there you go. Get Before Watchmen, Nite Owl, Hit Girl, and if you're looking for a good crime drama, go with Fatale. That being said, we have one more person to thank before we move on to tell you what's on the shelf. And that is Alchemy Apparel. Alchemy Apparel is located at Northland Village Mall. They are also located at Sunridge Mall here in Calgary, Alberta. If you are looking for T-shirts, mugs, backpacks. What else have they got? They got all kinds of stuff there. Belt buckles, wallets, with all your favorite superheroes on them. Whether it's all geek wear. I mean, check it out. They've got a great lineup. Go check them out. You can like them on Facebook, and that's Alchemy Apparel on Facebook. So check them out and go down and get some really cool T-shirts. They gave us a couple of T-shirts a few weeks ago, which
That's
we
right,
wore
when
here.
you,
The World's Finest.
Yeah, check out our World's Finest episode. Well, it wasn't really a World's Finest episode, but it was the World's Finest Us.
World's Finest Us.
Yeah.
And you have got what's new on the shelf this week.
That's right.
What are we recommending?
Okay, well, I'm just flipping through my list as usual. I've kind of glazed this over, but I never have my notes prepared, so who needs preparation?
Ah.
Okay, but new next week, we got Avengers vs. X-Men number 7. We did a review on number 6, and it's starting to really go some interesting places, so we're checking out. Don't know if we're going to do a review. I think we beat that horse to death already, but
a little bit.
We'll maybe give it a read and a mention rather than a review. As I mentioned just a minute ago, before the Watchmen, Ozymandias number 1 of 6 is coming out. So that would be definitely a review on our part. Let's see, what else do we got here? Bunch of number 3s and 11s are starting to ship from DC. Dial H, which we were both fans of number 1. Earth 2 number 3 is also out next week. Let's see what else we got here. I'm still, this is a interesting one. I don't know if we're going to get a chance to review this one, but He-Man and the Masters of the Universe
I want to review that next week.
by James Robinson.
I definitely want to review that next week.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. And let's see.
I have the power.
Hellraiser, number 15. I have to plop that one in because I've been really enjoying the book, and it's written by Clive Barker, the creator
nice.
of the character. So it's been a very fun read if you're a fan of that franchise. Let's see what else we got. A book you like, Lady Death, number 19. Yep. Marvel is releasing Muppets number 1, which is the unpublished material from Boom, the last of the Landridge Muppet stuff, which was really strong, good material. Just because it's a rock and roll show, I'm going to drop Orchid number 8 is out next week.
All right.
Let's see, Red Lanterns 11.
Now, there's some we haven't reviewed. Is any of the Red Lantern stuff?
It's dark and dank, to steal a term. It's been a good solid read. I like Peter Milligan, but at the same time, it's been a slow-paced book for Green Lantern stuff. It is a lot of internal turmoil, and we're almost a year into that book, and I'm still waiting for something to actually happen. So,
all right.
I mean, decent. Fits in with the Green Lantern stuff, kinda, but we're just starting to see those characters trickle out in other areas. We had a recent conflagration, as it were, with Stormwatch. So,
all right,
interesting stuff there. What else? Just to taper this off, new Vampirella. Actually, no, that's restocks. Actually, yeah, I think that is pretty much where I'm going to leave it. World's Finest number 3 is also out next week. And we actually have a name for our ape.
We do
the
so.
The contest is now over.
Contest is officially over.
The ape has been given a name.
He has, and the winner of our Name the Ape contest is the Mentenko family. They come to us from Manitoba, of all places.
And we discussed all these names, and we really like the ring to this. It's kind of indicative of the Planet of the Apes poster behind me.
Yes. His new name is, do you want to say it or do I?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I've already forgotten it.
His new name is Adamar.
Adamar, that's it. Adamar. And I'm always terrible with names, so you'll have to probably remind me a few times. But Adamar, I really like the name. Like I said, it's has a kind of a Planet of the Apes kind of ring to it.
Yes.
And our new great ape is Adamar.
Adamar
the great. Adamar the cool. Adamar. See, it works with any kind of adjective,
I'm going
right?
to get him a little Grodd helmet, too, so he can be Adamar, a.k.a. Grodd.
There we go.
But the Mentenko family, they have won themselves a Uncanny X-Men book. hardcover book, which is The Rise or the Fall of the Shi'ar Empire.
Rise and fall. And if you want to switch
Shi'ar
the camera, I'll
I will.
show them what they want. Okay, so we got the Ed Brubaker's massive tome, The Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire, and that is, that's like a $50 value there. So that is very cool. And they also won this wonderful Spawn prize pack, Spawn 200. One of them is the regular cover as well as a retailer incentive cover. So congratulations to the Mintenko family.
Yes, and we decided we were going to do a runner-up as well.
That's right, because this guy worked really hard and he for sheer volume of names. We're going to throw a few books your way as well.
You bet,
including
Star Trek. What else we got there? We've got the X-Men, number 50. We have Max Comics Fury.
Fury number 1, which has been a highly sought-after book. There's
a number of good
read.
books in here. There's The Incredible Hulk, 7.1, and Takio, and all these books also coming from Icon. And Hardcore, which is from Top Cow, number 1 book. How many number 1s are in there?
Let's see. We got Hardcore number 1. Star Trek number 9, X-Men, Astonishing X-Men 50, Fury number 1, that's another number 1 there, Incredible Hulk 7.1, so there's a 1 in there, and Takio number 1. So some good launch points. Hopefully you'll find some good reads in there that you will sign up for your local shop, hopefully Words and Pictures.
And that is going out to Dustin Thacker. Dustin Thacker put in 10 names.
Thanks for the sheer volume of choices, and boy, it was a close one with Knox. We did like Knox.
We bantered over. We went over this for a few weeks.
Yeah, we've been mulling it over, and we were like, I like Knox, but I'm not sure if that's the right one. So
and then all of a sudden, the Mintenko family came up with Adamar.
Came in at the 5th hour and the final hour, and they just squeaked another one in, and we really like that one.
You know, I got to say, from what I understand, the whole family was involved in this process to name. And you got to understand that the Mintenko family, from what I understand, has 3 boys and 1 little girl. And they're all, I think, under the age of 13. So it was kind of nice to have a nice young kind of audience perspective on this.
Oh well, we might throw something else in there because these are very boy-centric books we're giving you. So
you got to understand the little girl is just a newborn. She's not
at reading age.
She's not reading age.
Oh well.
She's still potty training.
Okay, keep in touch with Mintenkos with future contests. We're gonna have a nice kid-friendly show coming up about young reader and all ages material. So keep watching. There's lots of great stuff out there for your kids.
So our next contest coming up, as soon as we hit 100 likes on Facebook, we are going to start a brand new contest for all of our free comic book day stuff. There is over 25 books and that's physical books in the package, along with a nice little what do you call it there? A nice little bag to put everything in. It's a nice canvas bag that says Free Comic Book Day on it, so you can use it when you go to your next comic book convention. So check that out. As soon as we hit 100 likes, all the names that are on Facebook, we will be moving over to our contest, and then we will randomly draw one name when we hit 250 likes of the 250 people that have liked us on Facebook, and one of those people will win themselves a very, very nice prize pack. So we're trying to get our numbers up. If you've got suggestions for the show, you've got any comments, please leave them either on Facebook or on Twitter. You know how to reach us there. And that is pretty much another show for this week. And we've got next week, Community Superheroes, and hopefully we will have somebody here from the Calgary Police Service talking about the community programs to which people can get involved in. And that's it. That's all, buddy.
That's all, folks. Thanks for joining us. This has been another great show, and we'll see you each and every week here Saturdays at noon Mountain Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow myself on Twitter.
Right.
I'm jbishop616 on Twitter, and you can follow me there as well, or follow the show posts at under the Naked 8 Productions Twitter feed. And, we will see you guys
between the pages.